In an audacious revelation that shatters the illusion of post-colonial liberation, it's emerged that an insidious form of economic subjugation persists. Hidden in plain sight, 14 African nations, once shackled under French colonial rule, today find themselves entrapped in a financial vise, coerced into paying a staggering colonial tax to France, a move that reeks of neo-colonialism and exploitation. This egregious arrangement, cloaked in bureaucracy, siphons an eye-watering $500 billion from these nations, crippling their economies and chaining them to a cycle of dependency and debt. It's a scandalous echo of imperial domination, a slap in the face to the concept of sovereignty and self-determination. As we delve deeper into this controversial quagmire, we'll uncover layers of geopolitical manipulation, the stranglehold of neo-colonialist agendas, and the blatant hypocrisy of a world order that preaches equality but practices economic enslavement. The revelations are startling, the implications profound, and the outrage well-deserved. Stay with us till the end as we peel back the layers of this modern-day economic imperialism. Hello and welcome back to Notable Black's YouTube channel, where we delve into the interesting African and Black diversity trends around the world. If you're new to the channel and enjoy learning about Black diversity stories around the world, you've come to the right place. Please subscribe, like, and comment to help boost our videos on YouTube. The issue of what is colloquially termed the colonial tax paid by former French colonies in Africa is a complex and multifaceted subject that has been a topic of significant debate and criticism. This situation involves 14 countries, namely Benin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. These nations, with a combined population of $174 million and a nominal total GDP of $196 billion, are reportedly compelled to pay significant amounts of money to France, a practice rooted in the colonial era. The colonial era, marked by the dominance of European powers over vast swaths of Africa, Asia, and the Americas, ended for most countries in the mid-20th century. However, the economic and political influence exerted by former colonial powers like France has persisted in various forms. In the case of these African countries, this influence is allegedly manifested in the payment of a colonial tax, which amounts to approximately $500 billion. This system reportedly obligates these nations to deposit a portion of their budget into the French central bank under various designations. The mechanism by which this takes place involves the appropriation of around 85% of the former colonies' annual income by France. Consequently, these African nations often face significant financial challenges and are said to be in a position where they need to borrow back their own money from the French central bank, accruing debts in the process. The restrictions imposed on these countries limit them to accessing no more than 20% of the transferred funds. With the possibility of France vetoing requests for larger sums, France's justification for this system is claimed to be the investments it made in infrastructure and buildings in these countries over a century ago. The implications of this arrangement are far-reaching and controversial. For instance, any refusal by an African leader to comply with this tax payment has reportedly led to political instability, including coups. This situation not only affects the economic independence and development of these nations, but also has geopolitical ramifications. The recent coup in Niger, for instance, raised concerns among Western and African countries regarding the stability of the region and the future of important resource and infrastructure projects, such as the Niger-Benin oil pipeline, the Niger-Chad oil pipeline, and the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline. The reaction of various international actors to these events is varied. ECOWAS, a regional political and economic union of 15 West African countries, and other Western nations have expressed concerns about the stability and continuity of these projects, although the actual impact of the CAI on these projects remains uncertain. For instance, while the Niger-Benin pipeline appears to be proceeding as planned, the fate of the Niger-Chad and Trans-Saharan pipeline seems more ambiguous. This situation is indicative of a broader dynamic where African countries, historically subjected to colonial and post-colonial exploitation, are increasingly seeking autonomy and fairer relationships with former colonial powers and the broader international community. The reliance on former colonial powers for financial and political support has often come at a high cost, including the compromise of sovereignty and economic independence. This has led to a reevaluation of partnerships with African nations, exploring alliances that offer more equitable terms and respect for their sovereignty. The case of Mali and the Central African Republic illustrates a shift in African nations' foreign policy. These countries have shown a preference for working with new partners like the BRICS group of states, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, who are perceived to be less intrusive in internal politics and more respectful of pre-established agreements. This change in approach signifies a growing confidence among African nations in their ability to navigate the international arena without undue influence from traditional Western powers. The diminished trust in Western countries by their junior partners in Africa is a consequence of what is seen as a paternalistic or exploitive approach in these relationships. African nations are increasingly asserting their right to control their resources and economic policies. This is especially pertinent in the context of the global energy sector, where Africa plays a crucial role due to its vast natural resources. The next global conflict, often speculated to be centered around energy resources, is likely to see Africa as a key battleground, given its resource wealth. Moreover, the role of foreign banks, particularly those from the United Kingdom and France, in the economic instability of the Sahel region cannot be understated. The control exercised by these banks over the monetary systems of several African countries has significant implications for their economic sovereignty and stability. The fact that much of the African elite's wealth is stored in foreign banks exacerbates this situation, as it creates a dependency on Western financial systems and undermines local economic. The pattern where aid and support provided by Western countries predominantly benefit the elite in African nations, who then store their wealth in Western banks, has led to a cycle of dependency and control. This situation hinders meaningful economic progress and perpetuates poverty among the general populace. In Niger, for example, the disproportionate distribution of revenue from uranium exports, with France receiving the lion's share, highlights the unequal economic arrangements that still exist. The growing awareness and acknowledgement of these issues within Africa are leading to a redefinition of relationships with former colonial powers in the wider world. African countries are increasingly seeking to take control of their own destinies, managing their natural resources and formulating their economic policies without undue external influence. This shift represents a significant step towards true independence and self-determination for these nations, long after the formal end of colonial rule. If you are enjoying this video so far, please don't forget to subscribe, share the video, and comment. The pursuit of greater economic independence and sovereignty by African nations is a critical step towards addressing the long-standing impacts of colonialism and post-colonial economic arrangements. The situation of the former French colonies required to pay what is termed a colonial tax is emblematic of the broader challenges faced by many African nations in shaking off the legacy of economic dependence and exploitation. This continued financial arrangement, whereby a substantial portion of the national income of these countries is controlled by the French central bank, underscores a broader issue of economic control and its implications for national sovereignty. The need for these nations to borrow their own money back from France, often at high interest rates and with stringent conditions, perpetuates a cycle of debt and dependency. This cycle not only hinders economic growth and development, but also compromises the ability of these nations to exercise full autonomy over their fiscal policies and economic direction. The geopolitical consequences of this arrangement are profound. Instances of political instability, such as Coups, have been linked to the refusal to comply with these financial obligations. This instability not only disrupts the internal affairs of these nations, but also affects regional stability and international relations. The strategic importance of Africa, rich in natural resources and a key player in global energy dynamics, means that instability in any of these countries has far-reaching implications. The recent coup in Niger and the subsequent international reactions highlight the complex interplay of regional and international politics in Africa. The concerns raised by ECOWAS and Western nations about the impact of the coup on key infrastructure, projects like oil and gas pipelines, reflect the strategic economic interest at play. The varied responses from neighboring countries and regional organizations also demonstrate the complexities of African politics, where alliances and interests often intersect in intricate ways. The situation in Niger, with the involvement of international actors like the U.S., represented by figures such as Acting Deputy Secretary of State Victoria Noland, further illustrates the global dimension of what may appear to be regional issues. The use of diplomacy, threats, and negotiations in these situations often mirrors the broader power dynamics between Africa and the Western world, The perception of Western countries using economic and political leverage to maintain influence in their former colonies is a source of growing tension and a driving force behind the re-evaluation of these relationships by African nations. In this context, the shift towards partnerships with countries outside the traditional Western sphere of influence, such as the BRICS nations, is significant. These partnerships offer an alternative to the historically unequal relationships with former colonial powers. They provide African nations with the opportunity to engage in more equitable economic arrangements and diversify their international relations. This diversification is essential for reducing dependency on any single group of countries and for gaining greater leverage in international affairs. The issue of natural resource control and financial sovereignty is at the heart of these dynamics. The disproportionate benefit that countries like France continue to derive from the natural resources of their former colonies, as seen in the case of Niger's uranium exports, is a stark reminder of the ongoing economic imbalances. The control of these resources and the revenue they generate is crucial for the economic development and political stability of African nations. Moreover, the role of foreign banks in the economic systems of these countries, particularly those from former colonial powers, raises important questions about financial independence and economic self-determination. The concentration of African elite's wealth in Western banks not only reflects a skewed financial system, but also perpetuates a cycle where the economic policies and priorities of African nations are influenced, if not controlled, by external entities. This situation has significant implications for the distribution of wealth within these countries and for their overall economic stability and growth. The quest for economic autonomy is not just about financial resources, but also about gaining control over the narrative and decision-making processes that shape the future of these nations. The reliance on aid and financial support from Western countries has often been accompanied by conditions and expectations that align with the interests of the donor countries rather than those of the recipient nations. This dynamic has led to a growing realization among African countries of the need to forge a path that prioritizes their own interests and needs. The increasing assertiveness of African nations in international forums and their pursuit of more balanced and mutually beneficial relationships are signs of a changing global order. Africa's rich natural resources, including minerals, oil, and gas, make it a key player in the global economy, particularly in the context of the burgeoning energy sector. As the world grapples with the challenges of energy security and sustainability, Africa's role becomes even more crucial. In this evolving landscape, the potential for Africa to leverage its resources and strategic position to achieve greater economic and political autonomy is significant. However, realizing this potential requires a concerted effort to address the challenges of governance, infrastructure development, and capacity building. It also necessitates a rethinking of the traditional models of international cooperation and development assistance. The future of Africa and the global economy hinges on its ability to navigate these complex challenges and seize the opportunities that arise from its strategic position. The continent's rich cultural, human, and natural resources are assets that, if leveraged effectively, can propel it to new heights of economic and political influence. This will require a paradigm shift in the way African nations engage with the rest of the world and manage their internal affairs. The journey towards greater economic independence and self-determination is fraught with challenges, but also filled with opportunities. As African nations continue to assert their place in the world, they are rewriting the narrative of a continent that has long been at the periphery of global economic and political power. The end goal is a more equitable and just world order, where the wealth and resources of Africa are used to benefit its people and contribute to global prosperity. Thank you for your attention, and I welcome your thoughts and questions on this complex and vital subject. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to get exclusive videos about Africa, Black diversity around the world. Your subscriptions and likes motivate us to generate more content, so please keep supporting us. Check out this video showing on your screen right now, and I will see you on the other side.